Hey everyone, it's Veiled Shot back at it with an Awaken Chaos Era video. So I've had a lot of requests for doing specific champion guides, but I figured what better character to start with than Tia, because a lot of you are going to be getting her from the Battle Pass. So I just wanted to go over what gear I'm running her in, what gear you can run her in, what game modes she's excellent in, and why she's excellent in those game modes, and then what game modes she's not excellent in, and you should use some other characters. So let's go ahead and dive into what my experience with Tia is so far. So I am a free-to-play player, but I've happened to pull 2 copies from summons for her. So you can call me really unlucky or lucky, depending on how you look at it. But I've gone to Pity and gotten Tia twice. So just keep that in mind when I'm going over. So I have a lot of experience with Mythic farming and pretty much every single dungeon and every game mode because I try to place her in every one of my teams. So let's go ahead and dive into her abilities. All right, so first off is her, S attack, or really high base attack. This allows her to be built with a damage dealing kind of set of gear. She has decent multipliers on some of her skills, so she does do a decent amount of damage. She has decent base HP and base defense, which allows her to be survivable while also not building for survivability, essentially. And then she also has a B base speed with, I think, 100 base speed. This is with the Ascension 115. So she is able to be built a little faster than your damage dealers, which is kind of what you want. You want her faster than your damage dealers in a lot of scenarios so that you can get increased damage, and we'll go over that later. And then she has pretty mediocre base crit rate if you're trying to build for damage. Honestly, she, it's going to be a little more difficult to get to that 100% crit rate if you're trying to build her for damage. So let's go ahead and jump into her abilities now. So first off is the freeze. This is her trait. Minus 10% speed at 5 stacks applies frozen. So how do you get frostbite? You apply frostbite to an enemy at the end of the enemy's turn. This is really excellent because at 5 stacks, you're going to apply frozen, which we just mentioned in the frostbite passive. And frozen is 50% damage from all sources, but you also have a 50% chance to remove it when you're hitting them. So it's a stun that increases your damage, but also has a chance to be removed. It's a little bit like a mix between sleep and stun. So just keep that in mind. There's Ascension 5, and that is Frostbite 2, which is minus 20% speed, and at 4 stacks it turns into Frozen. So this is what makes her super, super excellent, along with her ultimate. She is a CC queen. She just comes in and freezes everyone, increasing your damage of your team, and constantly reducing the speed so that no one is going faster than your team. Now, what are her rest of her abilities? First is the basic. It applies Frostbite and deals 100% damage. This is important because you can kind of use this on characters with high amounts of her passive to get them to be frozen. So if you're in Void Tower and you need someone frozen and they have 4 stacks, hit them with a basic, they're going to be frozen. Second ability is 150% damage. Decent multiplier. This can do, 8-9k on, campaign gear from what I've seen, because that's what I'm running her with. And it applies 2 stacks of Frostbite. So again, if they have 3 stacks of Frostbite, you hit them with this, they're going to be frozen. And it's also on a 13 cooldown, so it's, pretty low cooldown. But this is what makes her excellent. In addition with her passive, 4-turn cooldown, 120% damage, so decent multiplier, with a 50% chance to apply frozen. So 50% AoE freeze, and then 80% AoE freeze if they're affected by Frostbite. So if you have them going first, like in Void Tower, they probably will be, then you can go ahead and hit back with an 80% chance to AoE freeze. Amazing skill. Amazing skill. So where do I use her and what am I geared with her with? All right, so how do I have Tia built and how are you going to build Tia? Well, there's really 2 ways, in my opinion, to build Tia. The first way is high damage, high focus. So high damage, high focus is pretty self-explanatory. You're going to build her like any other damage dealer. This happens to be the campaign gear. This is just attack, crit rate, attack. You're going to want to get high crit rate subs, high crit damage subs, high attack percentage subs, but also you're going to also want to focus on focus. So this has 16% focus. This one has 20.5% focus, and this one has 15% focus. Why? Because in this game, in order to land the frozen debuff, you're going to need to have a lot of focus in order for that to apply, because that is a debuff and it runs a resistance / focus check, in addition to the 50% chance to landing it. So focus is important on her. Now, the second way you could build her, and I have not run this because I use her as a supplementary damage dealer, but you can build her with high survivability and high focus in order for her to just be a CC machine, which she is. So what that means is running a speed boots, running HP / defense on her ring, and then running a focus necklace is also fine. And then just supplementing that with more tankier stats so that she's just going to be in there to freeze and slow down the enemy team. Now, it's important to build her with enough speed if you're using as a supplementary damage dealer in your arena, for example, to have enough speed to go before your damage dealers, but after your supports. So for me, in my arena comp, I'm running Evelyn, I'm running Tia, Zatlux, and Connor or Kyle. So I run Connor, and Connor goes, puts the buffs up. Evelyn goes, she uses her damage dealing, and then I have Tia going with enough speed because I do not want Evelyn to interrupt the freezes. I want Zatlux to go ahead and use that damage to boost his own, or use the debuff to boost his own damage. So just keep that in mind. If you want her to get the maximum value for CC, it's also a very interesting strategy to have her with absolutely 0 speed so that she goes last, so that the enemies are afflicted with her passive, and then you're having an AoE freeze at 80% chance. That is also one way to build her. And then the last way to build her is to go absolutely first before anyone, and then have your other characters really, really slow so that you just CC them, and then your other characters can catch up. There's a couple ways for speed-wise. I use her as a supplementary damage dealer, as I mentioned, and so I am using her in order to go before Zatlux. So what areas of the game does she absolutely shine in? I'm going to go ahead and put a graphic up on screen here. This is a kind of a sneak peek into my tier list. I'm running a guild boss tier list out in the next couple of days so that you can kind of check out the characters that I rate really, really highly. But this is going to be eventually a comprehensive tier list on every character in the game. So let's go ahead and just kind of go over some of the stats that I have here for her. The first one up is campaign. So as you can see here from kind of the clip in the background, she's just going to help you do a bunch of damage. Obviously, Zatlux is kind of carrying campaign most of the time. But if you do not have Zatlux, which you'll eventually get, or if you need someone to supplement Zatlux, this is the perfect character for you. So you can see here in the turn order, we have Connor, then we have Evelyn, and then we have Tia. She's going to use her ultimate. She got 1 freeze, that was a little unlucky, but then Zatlux is going to come in, and he's going to get 50% increased damage from there, as you saw from the Frozen, and then absolutely wipe out the rest of the team. And so that AoE freeze really does come in handy when you're dealing with campaign. All right, next up is arena defense and arena offense. Now, I can't really show you an arena defense because I do not have someone to test my arena defense, which has Tia in it, but I do have essentially the same team on defense as you saw in the campaign. So it should work about the same way. So let's go ahead and test out Tia against this comp right here. I'm going to go ahead and pull out Kyle because they don't have a win strike, so I don't need Kyle. And I'll just go ahead and show you how this arena comp kind of works and why I rated her at 10. So on arena offense, if you have a turn 2 comp running, then she's going to get that speed down out and then have an amazing 80% chance to freeze. If you're running her as I you kind of see here, where she's not going last, she wants to go ahead of the damage dealers, then she's going to be getting a ton of extra damage for your team here. So let's go ahead and go through the motions here. Ult with Tia, and you're going to see here, so we got a freeze on Evelyn. That interrupted the turn order, so Evelyn didn't actually get to go, and that's what makes her so good. We only got 1 frozen there, so it was actually pretty unlucky because we should have at least gotten about 2 on average. But you can see here, in an ideal world, we would have someone else frozen, and we would have Zatlux do a 50% increased damage. But even interrupting the turn order by just having like an additional CC there is extremely helpful and comes into play a lot of scenarios. So this was probably one of the worst showcase. We didn't even crit there with 83% crit rate. So obviously, this is probably one of the worst showcases in my arena comps, but you can see she still provided an interruption of their turn order, which is really what you want on arena offense and arena defense, in addition with accelerating your damage dealers even further ahead. So let's go ahead and just see if we can test it against another comp. Let's see. I'll go ahead and run it against this one because I don't think this one is too difficult. So I went ahead and challenged this battle right here. We ended up winning, but it took like 6 minutes or so. So I decided not to show you that one. It's a little long. Let's go ahead and see if we can find a different one. Let's go ahead and see if we can challenge this one real quick. I don't think you want to see a 6-minute arena battle, but that being said, let's see if we can find one that's shorter and still gets across the point, because I want to give you a couple of examples. That way you kind of know that I'm not, just picking the best examples of Tia. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and stun Zatlux because there's no way Hydrisia will be able to kill off our team, whereas Zatlux has a chance of being able to do so. And then this is obviously a little bit of a Kyle showcase as well. And if you do want to see any other showcase, let me know. I do enjoy doing these types of videos, so let's go ahead and get our ultimate out, defense down, As you can see, Tia is faster than Zatlux, and Zatlux is slower than everyone. So our hope here is that we are going to be able to freeze Ciara or Hydrissia so we don't lose any characters. So there we go. We froze Ciara there. And Hydrissia is going to go ahead and go. She's not going to kill off anyone. And because we froze Ciara, she does not get her passive hit there. And she's not able to kill off anyone. And that's what makes Tia so amazing, is that these freezes not only increase your damage, but also disrupt the enemy team. So I think that was a pretty good example of some ways you can use her in arena offense and defense, and that's why I rate her so highly. Let's go ahead and jump into the next rating, which is the guild boss. Now, I do not have any guild boss footage to show you here, but if you do want to see footage of Tia doing the guild boss, you can go ahead and check out my other video for my guild boss level 20 chest. I did use her, and my ratings for her are like 6, 5, and 3. And why do I have a rater so low? Well, when you're doing the guild boss, what you're going to want is either really good support skills, or you're going to want high damage. So doing high damage involves high single target multipliers, and Tia does not have really high single target multipliers. She has decent ones, but you'd much rather use someone else in her place, if I'm being honest. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at that. Obviously, the other affinities are going to be worse. This is her best affinity, the fire. So let's go ahead and jump into Void Tower and Endless Trials. So for Void Tower, I have her rated as a 10. And the reason I have her rated as a 10 is because she provides so much CC, but also on top of that, she provides one of the few CCs that actually works for Void Tower. Because Stun and Sleep are not able to be applied, I have been able to get to Void Tower hard 40 using Tia. Some people have been struggling on floors previous. This is my first real bottleneck, and I was really able to get here purely because of Tia. If you want to check out some clips, be sure to check out my other video. I have a video on clearing 20 and 30 Void Tower, and I use Tia in every one of my battles. Really, really excellent for Void Tower. Now, the next one is Endless Trials. I have her at a 10 for Endless Trials because there's a lot of artifacts that work really, really well for her. For example, one of them is Flood Staff, resetting cooldowns when you use a spell, so allowing you to continuously freeze the enemies over and over again, or getting bonus turns and stacking more up your passive stacks, getting more Frozens out there. Excellent character. I use her in every battle, doesn't matter what affinity. And the boss fight in level 70 is water and fire, so she's either positive neutral affinity or positive affinity, so she's excellent in Endless Trials. Let's go ahead and check her out in some of the dungeons. So for the dungeons, I have not run too much Gemini or Queen. I've done a little bit of some other accounts, but I don't think she's particularly good in any of the dungeons, except for perhaps Ash Magisteria. I have run her a little bit in Ash Magisteria. I've been able to get to stage 9. The problem with her is that she doesn't have enough damage multipliers to actually clear out the imps, and then she also doesn't have enough damage for single target in order to clear out the boss. And you really need to clear out those imps in order to beat this boss. So I would give her a 7, as I saw in the rankings as you see above. And I also give her a pretty terrible ranking in every other dungeon, maybe 6, pretty average to lackluster. Terrible for Tulpa, do not use her in Tulpa. I would not recommend using her in the dungeons, which is why her overall ranking kind of tanks here, because she's not really a dungeon character. In the dungeons for this game, you really need high damage and very specific characters in order for you to complete some of these dungeons. So I would not recommend using her in any of the dungeons. Next up is the Ability Crystal dungeons. So I said none of the dungeons, but the Ability Crystal dungeons I kind of place in a separate category. Obviously, you do not want to use her for the Wood one. The Bane Wraith is a terrible one to use her for. Using her for the Flame Lizard is very, very good. She's very solid in that dungeon. In the Ability Crystal, the dungeons aren't very hard for the ability materials, so I give them a little higher rating because she's very, very usable and very good in Flame Lizard, decent in Flood, okay for the Light and Captive. So obviously there's much better characters out there, but these dungeons are pretty easy. So, don't think too hard about building a team. Just kind of pick the right affinity and go for it. All right, and lastly, I have a rating for her potion value. And what that means is how much value are you getting when you're putting potions into her? So I have her rated as a 5. And the reason why I have her rated as a 5 is you can fuse her. So if you can fuse her, the potions should be probably used for someone that you cannot fuse, because you're more likely to get 4 different epics than you are a specific legendary duplicate. Now, does her ascension trait matter a lot? Absolutely. It's one of the best ascension traits in the game. She's amazing. It is Ascension 5, which decreases the potion value for her. But it's an amazing trait. I know a lot of people out there, for free-to-plays, her potion value goes up because it's much harder to get 4 epics. So keep that in mind. But if you're spending, then the potion value goes down because you're going to be getting a lot more epics, duplicates, and you can just fuse her over and over again. So I would save your potions for other characters if you are spending. If you're free to play, I wouldn't mind dumping some extra potions into her if you need to get farther in Void Tower, if you need to help with Endless Trials. Obviously, at this point, you probably should be beating level 70 Endless Trials, so that's also another way to think about it. But other than that, I would kind of save your other potions for other people because you're very likely to get 4 epics than you are duplicate legendary. All right, what do I think of Tia overall? She's honestly a average legendary if you include her in the dungeons. She's not amazing in the dungeons, but if you exclude the dungeon category, she's a top 5 legendary in the game, in Arena, in Void Tower. In those game modes, she's amazing, and some of those game modes are some of the most important game modes, so just keep that in mind. Now, if you are enjoying these videos, be sure to leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe, and whoever you want to see next, be sure to let me know in the comments, and I will see if I can get them built, get some clips going, and show off the next character. And I will see you for the next video.